TMNT 2 Secret of the Ooze came out 35 years ago, and we were able to go and check out a screening in the theaters. We're going to talk about it now. We're excited to take a dive into one of our favorite franchises of all time.
Yeah, so if you were trying to determine a picture, a film that kind of encapsulates your childhood, this is that film for me. Like, this is one that I can just sit through and smile at. And there's some negative things that I'm going to talk about later on in our review of this, because there are problems with the film. But this is my childhood.
Yeah.
You know, I was 8 years old when it came out. And it was just, it was so different from the first film that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
That I saw it, 6, 7 years old, which I almost did the hand thing because I make fun of my kids with that stuff, and I almost did it, and I stopped myself. And
thank you for that. It's 2026. It's time to put that to bed.
But yeah, it just felt like my childhood, and being able to see it back in theaters as a 4K transfer, we got a little bit of it was almost like a 5-minute documentary on it, beforehand, but. It was really great to see it in theaters again, and I also got to take my oldest to see it. So I took her as well to see the original TMT movie in theaters, and it just felt like just being able to share that joy of my childhood with her was just really fun, and we were dancing to stuff, and it's just, like I said, this is just that film that I would say is my childhood. And we grew up in the heart of Disney films and everything else too. And there's so many of those I love, but this is the one that just, as a little boy, it just made me feel like just so awesome and wanting to do karate and wanting to do this and that. It was just, I don't know, this is my childhood, this film.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I've always talked about like Halloween costumes when you were growing up. I was a Ninja Turtle at least 3 times as a kid. There were 2 things that if you knew me as a kid, you knew that I loved. I loved Spider-Man and I loved the Ninja Turtles. Like, I was Spider-Man several times for Halloween. I was a Ninja Turtle several times for Halloween as well. Like, this is just one of those franchises that hit at the right time. I'm going through and collecting all the comic compendiums right now and in graphic novel form, and just going back and reading, like, even like the dark tone of the older comics. Like, there's a little bit of something for everybody in the Ninja Turtles, and I think that's why they're so, so well loved among so many people in different backgrounds and stuff. And that was kind of part of the cool intro that Kevin Eastman did for it, because we got, like you said, since it's a special like anniversary screening, you got a little bit of that documentary to talk about Ninja Turtles and what he loves so much about them, and the fact that they're intentionally designed to be appealing to everyone, which is
no race, no religion, no anything. It's like anyone can see themselves as a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, and that's what's so wonderful about this. But this film in particular, I agree, because the original Ninja Turtles movie is an absolute classic film. It's so good, so well done, but it does have a little bit of that darker, more serious tone, and this is like a 180 from that, which is crazy because of how close these 2 films were to each other. Like, I think a lot of people forget that the original Ninja Turtles movie came out less than a year before this one was released. So they came out very close, and these were made very close together. The fact that they were able to come out within a year of each other. And I think a lot of people forget that when they go to talk about these films, because there is such a stark contrast in tone. You would think there was a little bit longer of a gap in time between when these were made. And that definitely wasn't the case, because there was a lot of, and we can go into some of it, but there's a lot of the, background stuff that changed so much between the first and second movie, and why that film feels so different from each other.
Yeah, as you said, there were so many changes in between these 2 films, because it went much lighter and more comedic. They wanted to take it more like the cartoon that was blowing up, because they wanted merchandise. They wanted toys and action figures out there, and they said after the first, like, we can't put toys out for this film because it's too dark. Like, we can't market something this violent and dark towards kids. Yeah. And so they didn't. And so they wanted the next one to be much lighter, which, Judith Hoag did not return for April O'Neil, and they did Paige Turco. So she was fine. She was great as April, but it was just, you always feel weird when replacements happen. And, the studio just tried to say, because we were going in that lighter direction, that we wanted to have a different April who would fit into it, but there's also behind the scenes drama that Judith spoke up about, you know,
stunt workers.
Yeah,
and all that.
the stunt workers being treated bad, and the times and other things of how they did the film just wasn't, you know, very good. Trying to speak up the conditions of the film, and she, of course, didn't return. Which is, I'm hoping they get that Last Ronin live action Last Ronin film back up off of the shelf, because she is supposed to return as April on that one, and I want to see her get another chance to do that. But yeah, there are just so many changes in this, and one of the biggest ones was that the turtles never used their weapons. There was one scene where Donatello hit somebody with his staff, but past that, their weapons were not used to attack the foot soldiers or anybody else.
Yeah, it's definitely more karate focused and the martial arts focused, and less in the weapon use. Like that was a big one, and then like there was a little bit of like Michelangelo using like sausages as nunchucks and some other things like that. And you have, you know, April kind of jokingly when Kino shows up to the apartment to
Get to do a good chucking.
Yeah, and she's flailing around with the nunchucks. It was very funny. But yeah, the weapons were not used in this. It was more karate focused and, fists and kicks and everything like that. That was definitely a different tone. You also get the introduction of Kino, the character, who kind of a fun back information. If you don't know anything about the actor that played him, Ernie Reyes Jr., he was the stunt double for Donatello in the first film, and he kind of steps out and makes his only appearance in the franchise. Like Kino the character was not in any of the cartoons. He wasn't like involved in any story moving forward. This is like a one and done for appearance for a character that you thought was going to have maybe a bigger role in Ninja Turtles moving forward because of his role in this film. But this was kind of a one-off for him. But he's had, a bigger career after that with like stunt work and other things that he's done as an actor and everything like that. And it was a cool introduction for a character for a one-off he played kind of a big role in this movie. Like he was heavily involved in. But yeah, this was so much fun, man. I love this movie so much. Like it scratches that right itch of seeing, because a lot of us, our introduction to it wasn't exactly the comics, it was the cartoon. It was the animated series that got us into it. And this felt like the perfect live adaptation for the cartoon that we love so much, even though like not all the characters were involved, and we can talk about some of the changes they made as well to some of the side characters that were involved in the movie that didn't really have a place in the cartoon either, but it had that feel and that tone and that made the perfect jump from the cartoon to the live action. And I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for this film because of that.
And normally when you have such a big change between, especially tone between one film to the next, it normally doesn't work out well to it. And this is it's one of the better sequels that have been made. It still has a lot of problems. We'll talk about that towards the end. Yeah. But yeah, it was major changes to everything to try to make it more like the cartoon. And it was very cartoonish in many ways with it. But I did want to touch back on Kino at his introduction in the beginning, because it is so funny when they talk about making this film more family friendly and everything else, that he makes a fat joke towards women at the very beginning. And as a girl dad watching it with him after that, I'm like, Kino's a good character throughout this, but it's like that joke to clearly skinny women was like, okay, that's a little kind of out of left field when you said this is a very family friendly film. Like he's making a jab because they rejected his advances and he's going to make fun of their weight for it. I'm like, that was a weird choice for the beginning of that.
Yeah, there are certain elements of the movie that don't age well, obviously, because it's 35 years ago. You know what I mean? There's certain things now that you wouldn't be able to necessarily get away with, but it has a lot of the quirky like catchphrases and leaning very heavily into the slang of the day kind of things. You get into the movie itself, and it's just your basic story. Like this takes place right after the events of Ninja Turtles 1. You have, Shredder supposedly gone and taken away, but you're still having them, dealing with the Foot a little bit, but there's still a crime wave in New York happening. There's, the Foot is basically rallying the troops and recruiting kids and recruiting young men for this. And, all of it has to do with the fact that the Shredder is very much not gone in this. But one of the things that struck me about this film that I really didn't pay that much attention to, as a kid, obviously, because you look at it through a different lens now, is how little action the Shredder actually has for being the big bad in the film. Like, he has no involvement, and the one time he really gets physical is his undoing in the film.
is beating himself up.
Yeah, he takes himself out, which is absolutely crazy. But yeah, it gets a little silly at times, and it leans into the humor a little too hard. It's like it's a very noticeable tonal shift between two films. Like, you have some of that humor in the first one, but they really ramp it up in the second.
It's a little too quiet. I always love it's a little too rough. Oh, not quite ripe yet. Like, it has some great one-liners from it, but it is very cartoonish. It's very over the top, and because you also get the introduction of Tokar and Razor, which originally were supposed to be Bebop and Rocksteady, but Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who created the Turtles, they weren't fans of using those characters as they were using them in the script, because originally they wanted to keep the dark tone of Turtles 1 and keep it more like the comics, and they wanted to do Baxter Stockman and the Mousers and even put in the Rat King into the sequel, but they got shot down. So they kind of shot down, well, don't use Bebop and Rocksteady for this, so they introduced two new characters, voiced by Frank Welker, which is the legendary voice of Megatron and Scooby-Doo and Fred Jones and just Garfield and Curious George, but he's also done hundreds to thousands of animal voices. Absolute legend, and you get him playing both, which they were so just really over the top and different in that. But as we talked about how Keno never reappeared in anything, no comics, no movies, no cartoons, anything. Toko and Razor proved to be so popular, they ended up joining the cartoon for a little bit. And so you did get to see them. And I do remember as a kid that after leaving the film, I wanted Tokar, Razor, Super Shredder. I got those toys, and I wanted those toys after. But as you pointed out, it was really ridiculous how the Turtles never touched Shredder.
Yeah.
Shredder threw Leonardo as Super Shredder. That's the only contact they made. Keno kicks the vial of ooze out of Shredder's hand, but past those two small 5-second scenes, no one ever made contact with Shredder. And he destroyed himself as Super Shredder, which was, I was watching to look as we were watching the movie, and it was even more ridiculous of how Super Shredder defeats himself by just knocking over the dock onto himself, because if you watched where the final moment happens of where the dock collapses, it's where the Turtles fell through. So there was a big hole over his head, so nothing fell on Shredder. But then he's buried after you cut back to him, but nothing actually fell on him. So he defeated himself doing nothing, because nothing hit him. Nothing harmed him, but then he was buried.
Doesn't sell the story, Brad.
That's the absolute worst part of this film that you have to talk about. The negativity is that they never actually fought Shredder, and Shredder defeated himself in the most ridiculous stuff. I still wanted the toy as a little boy afterwards. Right. I wanted Super Shredder because he looked so crazy, even though, like, how did Ooze change his clothes and increase his spikes and make his helmet bigger and everything else? How'd the Ooze do that along with changing his physical form? You didn't care as a little kid. Like, as an adult, I'm poking fun at that because it was just so ridiculous. It was such a good, fun film, ended in such a bad way because they never really... The final fight was 5-10 minutes before that with Tokar and Razor. Yeah. You had a dance break and a keytar before we got to the end of the movie.
The final battle took place during a Vanilla Ice concert, which how can you not dance and love that song? But
to kids, one of the most iconic parts of the film.
Any kid that watched that movie during that time, still to this day, remembers that song
and the choreography. And the choreography for the ninja rap of making sure you bring each hand up and down in the right way.
It just over the top. It was so funny, and it was a fun moment to do that because I low-key looked over at your daughter.
Oh, me and my daughter were dancing.
And to watch her kind of dance to it too was so funny because I was just like, I was expecting her to just be like, to kind of make that face like at it, and she was just having a blast, which was so indicative of how good this movie is and how much fun you can have watching it. Like plot holes and other things, be damned with it. But it's so much fun, man. That scene will forever not be an iconic scene to Turtles fans. Like it's so fun.
I was laughing to myself as an adult during that scene, not only because the memories and everything of listening to Ninja Rap and just the ridiculousness of having a Vanilla Ice concert be part of the film, but as an adult, I couldn't help but I'm looking at Vanilla Ice up on stage there. I was seeing a Jim Carrey in Living Color skit. Like, is that really Vanilla Ice? Or is that like a Jim Carrey skit of Vanilla Ice from In Living Color on there? Like, it didn't feel like it was like really Vanilla Ice. It felt like a skit going on up there.
That was a big deal at the time. He was really popular. He was really like Ice Ice Baby was a huge hit around that time. Like,
I still wanted to find out more information about just what happened with that song because you can't find it to really listen to. And when he performs it, he's doing like a hard rock version of it because he came around the area a few years ago with the I Love the 90s tour at Great American Ballpark, and he had the Turtles come out and he performed Ninja Rap, but it was a much different version. So there's some sort of legal or other issue around it, and it's like this is one of the biggest movie fun songs from the early 90s, but you can't really listen to it anymore. You can't find it past watching in the movie, and it's just such a weirdness around that song.
It's so iconic, but it for a movie, like, it was just so fast. It moves so quick. You kind of you're so used to longer movies now that you feel like it feels like we were barely in the theater to watch this movie. Like it's only 90 minutes, but it's like such a breeze to watch. It goes so quickly. But you were kind of hoping that coming out of it, because it was commercially successful based on the budget, it made like triple its budget back, which for the times was very impressive, obviously, even for a sequel at that time. Like,
and the first Turtles movie might still be the highest grossing independent film of all time, or it might have been dethroned lately. So like both of them really made a lot of money.
Yeah, financially did very well for them, but it's so good, man. I just you can't not help feel the wonderful wave of nostalgia going back and watching this, and I'm definitely glad we did that because, man, it had been a minute since I had seen it. Like I'll find my way back to them every once in a while, and I do still find myself going back to one a lot just because of how good it is. But two, man, even though it's like completely tonally different, it still holds up. Like there's some of the things that don't age well, but it's just you get taken back to your childhood with it, and I start thinking about like my theater experience going to see this as a kid, and I remember the theater that I went to see this movie. Unfortunately, it's not around anymore, that movie theater, but then you start thinking about all the other movies you went and saw in that theater, and just kind of takes you right back to that time as a kid where you just looked so forward to Friday or Saturday getting up and either going to see the movie after school or going to see it on the weekend with your family, and just brings back so many positive theater experiences. Like this is one of the first like authentic movie theater experiences that I have a very vivid memory of, like my experience going to see it in the theater, remembering taking the trip to go see it. Cause like you said, I was 6 when this came out. So it was a very important film to me as a kid, obviously. Like this is one of my first vivid memories, and it just goes back to speak to my love of movies. Like you can go back and vividly remember going and seeing it, and the popcorn, and the theater itself that we saw so many films at growing up, and it was one of those to really just kind of take you back to a good and happy place for it, for sure.
Yeah, and it reminds me of that theater experience now because this aspect of theaters, they still exist, but they're so lame now. Is that we would get to the theater extra early so we could play the arcade machines around. Absolutely. So both of the main theaters that we had around this area, they had decent arcades because you would have X-Men, the arcade game, and Turtles, the arcade game, and you had so many big kind of multiplayer arcade games to play together with other kids. And so it was an experience. You would go, you'd walk up to the window, you'd get your ticket right there. It was free for all seating, but and parents would give us quarters, and we'd go over to the arcade machines and play until it was time to go get our concessions to go in the movies. Like it was much more of an experience for us. And we're nostalgia big time here, but it was an experience going to the theater because, I lived 45 minutes away from the closest theater. So when we were driving into town, it was something, special to be able to go out to a movie and play the arcade machines, because we didn't have an arcade in our hometown, and, got to do all that. And it was like a special day to see a movie and play the arcade games. And this, like I said, peak for me, 7, 8 years old to, I guess it would have been 7 years old. It was just, this was my childhood, and it just reminds me so much. I was smiling throughout the film of just memories of watching this. Like, we can point out those major flaws with the Turtles not using their weapons and not fighting Shredder, and Shredder defeating himself beneath a hole in the dock and stuff, but I don't care about any of this, even still as an adult, because I just remember how much fun and love I had for that film, because you had some good fight sequences between the Foot Clan. Like, pretty much all the fights were with the Foot Clan, because Tatsu was defeated by one move. Shredder defeated himself. Yeah. Tokar and Razor, it was okay fights, but they were very bulky suits, so they couldn't really do that big choreography. The Turtles were handling all the choreography for that. But I do want to touch on, because that's also a big part of my memories in childhood with this is probably, for me, the definitive Ninja Turtles, because of the suits in the second one. They were much more refined. They got the animatronics in the head so much better, so you got so much more eye movement and eyebrow movement, and the lips were much more synced with the characters. They were able to slim down and make that better. But I also think, for me, as much as I love the cartoon, this set of voices was also the definitive voices. Like, that's Leonardo, that's Donatello, that's Michelangelo, and that's Raphael. Because it was also interesting, because Donatello changed voice actors. Corey Feldman, which still blew my mind, was Donatello in the first TMNT movie, but he was in rehab and going through his struggles. And since they were going family friendly, they're like, well, we don't think it's going to be a very good look if we have someone who's in rehab come back. And they got another voice actor to come in, and it's, like I said, just those voices, along with Kevin Clash as Splinter, which still, it blew my mind the first time that I realized Kevin Clash was Elmo, and he was Splinter. So this deep, gravelly voice is Splinter, which, again, I love the puppetry on Splinter and everything else. I think that's the best they've done Splinter in live action too. Like, the CGI Turtles that they followed up with, just, it didn't bring that realness and heart and emotion and feeling that those suits. And like I said, that was the peak in 2, because we all know the disaster that ended up being the suits in Turtles in Time, because they went cheaper, didn't bring the Henson Company back, so the suits looked weird, off. It just didn't, like, that was the pinnacle of the suits and the voices for me. So, like, that is the key of, like, when I think of the Turtles, I'm thinking of those suits, and I'm thinking of those voice actors, and I'm thinking of that, because I love the cartoon. It's one of my favorites. The voice actors were great in there, and we got to do a panel with them at a con and get to hear them. Those are iconic voices, and they're a very, 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 very close second to me. But there's just something about just the combination of the suits with the voices and everything, and Secret of the Ooze was just perfection.
The aesthetic was incredible. The suits looked amazing, and I was even marveling at it when we just went and saw. Because as of the time of recording of this, we just seen it yesterday, and the suits looked immaculate. They were literally perfect. I agree. Like, this is, like, when I think of Ninja Turtles, I think of this movie first. Like I said, even though I go back and watched, I've probably seen the first one as much, if not more.
Same.
This is still the one that I kind of point to as, like, where my love for the Ninja Turtles just kind of went to the next level. Like I said, there's so many things tied into it. And that's what we talk about, the magic of movies and the magic of the movie-going experience. Like, this is one of, if not my first vivid memory of experiencing a movie in the theater, having that excitement to go see it, because we did watch the cartoons. We did have the toys. But this is where it really tied together and really exploded my love and my fandom of the Ninja Turtles, was this one, because I don't even think I saw the first movie until later. I don't remember my theater going experience for
I do
the
remember
first
going to the
film.
theater myself for that one.
I probably did.
Yeah.
But triggered in my memory is this film, and this is the one that really, like I said, just took my love of the Ninja Turtles to the next level. And it was perfect because it was supposed to be marketed to kids my age and, our age group, because this is a PG movie. Like, I may have been a little bit younger than the actual target demo for this, but man, it just took off for me after this. Like, I became absolutely obsessed with the Ninja Turtles from here on, and seeing them in live action, and to this day, just still so much fun that we got to go and see and experience this in theaters again. It just brought back so much. I got a little bit emotional thinking about it, like afterwards, even like last night, just kind of like absorb it and take it and getting ready to come in here and talk about it like we did. And
while you're taking your ibuprofen and complaining about your back and knees
reminding
hurting.
that I am not that kid anymore. But it just, man, it's just so many positive memories tied back to this. The movie is absolutely cheesy. The dialogue is cringy now. Like it just is, but in the best way possible. Like it's so much fun. I want to go back and watch it again. I know you got me the trilogy box set on Blu-ray, and I even want to go back and watch Turtles in Time, even though I know it's a terrible, terrible movie. But I want to go back and complete it, and I'll probably do that at some point this week. But like, seeing this is just, it sparked so much positivity with me. Just all the great things that surround this film and my fandom of this franchise that has lasted for 35 plus years at this point. Like it's something that is just super cool. And like, even just going and seeing like the documentary before it, which kept with Kevin Eastman talking about it, and taking back to our time where we got to go to the Comic Expo and meet Kevin Eastman and have him sign some stuff for us is something I'll remember forever. And even got him to doodle a little turtle thing on the thing that we got signed. I'll keep my picture with him forever, like I got on my phone. I've got it backed up and saved, and it's just such a cool thing to be a part of, and such, so many positive memories around it. It was so cool that we got to go back and watch this film again, and I had a blast.
Yeah, it was awesome talking to Kevin about not only just what it meant to me as a child, of that I got to talk to him about my oldest and how I got her into the Ninja Turtles, and how she still has love, even though she's getting older now, she still holds that love with me over the Turtles and stuff. And it was just to talk to the creator of something that it was because it's that underdog kind of story too, that you just feel so awesome about, is that they thought they were just writing this crazy one-off comic that was never going to do anything. And now, because that was like 1984 when they created it, so that long after that, it's still going huge. We just got a new animated reboot of it in film wise with Seth Rogen, that they're doing another live action reboot coming up that is still going so strong this many years later. And again, TMNT 1 is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece to me. Like, it was I love the dark and gritty. I love, 3 out of 4 of the turtle voices are still the same between the two films. And I still enjoyed what Corey Feldman did as Donatello in the first one. But it really was. I do think that second one, which was, as we mentioned, it could have been a disaster for him, that they decided to change so much of the tone and everything else and try to make it more like the cartoon, could have really bombed, because as we did touch on, Turtles in Time tried to do another gigantic change. And you did get Casey Jones come back, which I still would have loved to seen Casey Jones continue on in the second one, but I do get, other than saying that he was a violent character and they didn't have him there, if you had Casey and Kino, it probably would have been, I don't know if it would have worked as well, just because they were kind of the same in a way, of that same kind of foothold of just the human who's helping and, doing all this stuff. But I would have loved to see Casey Jones been in that second one. But yeah, it's just like, I really think Secret of the Ooze was one that, if it hadn't been solidified yet, this helps solidify it as a mega global franchise that helped keep it going, 40 years after its creation now. And that it just cemented that legacy, that they did it so differently. But I mean, there was still some dramatics and stuff in there, because they're questioning, with they're learning about the Ooze being it was actually a mistake. They thought it was going to be, which is different from the comics that was based on alien, stuff, which they changed some things because of that, and they just kind of made it. It was an accidental chemical combination that did it, and I still laugh, and it's the it's the nitpicky guy in me when I look at things for like realism and stuff. Is that it's that scene where Perry, the doctor, is draining all the ooze out of the canisters. There's not a single port or opening on those canisters. You would have to screw off those ends to be able to take anything out if they even screwed off. But he just puts it on the machine and it drains out. There's absolutely no way to take the ooze out of those bottles how they have. And they created Tokar and Razor using it all, but they still had a full bottle of the ooze and everything too. Like there's so many inconsistencies with stuff. But it was so fun, so humorous. They nailed the suits. They nailed the turtle voices. They nailed Splinter voices. They just nailed so many different aspects that you didn't care how cheesy, how bad some of the details are in the film. You were just having such an incredibly fun time as a kid that it still sticks with you as an adult, that you can still go back and outside of all the issues and problems that I could sit and nitpick every little bad thing. In the end, I don't care about them for my enjoyment of the film because I just love this version of the Turtles. I love the first live action, and I've seen it, as you said, I've seen it more than Secret of the Ooze, but that's my childhood. Secret of the Ooze is just right in the childhood. That's like peak nostalgia. That's just everything when I think of being a little boy growing up in the late 80s, early 90s revolves around this film.
Yeah, for sure. And we both talked about how we just had all the toys. We had the Technodrome. We had the the van that shot out the little pizza discs and stuff like that. We all had that. We all had our own, and everybody has a favorite turtle. That's the fun part about the Turtles is you can
Michelangelo.
So you were a Mikey guy. I was also a Mikey guy, but also like Donatello too because I'm a huge nerd.
My oldest loves Raphael, so she went with the darker, grittier guy out of all of them, while I went for the party guy.
Knowing your daughter, that absolutely tracks. but yeah, like it was, everybody's got their favorite one, and everybody can identify with different ones, and that's the beautiful part about the Turtles, like you said. And Kevin put it perfectly before the film as well, talking about how they were designed to be for everyone. And there's enough differences between them that everybody can see themselves in at least one of them. And that's why they've been so popular and so successful commercially for so many years, despite the fact that we don't always get the best films out of it. But, it's still one of those. You slap it on a cartoon or you slap it on a video game, it works and it sells, and it's such a positive, popular franchise that, it's going to endure for a long time. And it was so cool that we got to go see this film again in theaters and have that theater-going experience of seeing the movie and just taking us back to so much more of a simpler time in our lives, obviously being kids, and just getting that positivity. It was definitely one that we sorely needed, given all the BS that's going on in the world right now. But like this was such a fun one to go back and revisit, and I'm definitely glad we did that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, outside of The Simpsons, which started in 89,
yeah,
Turtles has to be probably one of the longest running consistent series of things being done with it. Since like we had a little bit of break between the last live action CG hybrid Turtles film before Seth Rogen put his stuff out, because there was a little lull in not having the TV series and the films and stuff going, but it's still been rather consistent since it came out, between the comics coming out and the other media that's come out for it. I can't think of some, because I mean we've got He-Man that's coming out soon, but it hasn't had we haven't had new He-Man movies and shows. Last movie was Dolph Lundgren's version, which I dislike that movie, but I can't stop going back and watching it because it was so bad. But I want to go. But it's just like consistently from the 80s, like it's been one of the longest running properties that has been consistently selling well, doing well, popular. Like there's every generation has those Turtle fans that have come out because it's been around and different, because it's also tried to reinvent itself every now and then. Even like right now in the comics, after Last Ronin, they're reinventing, that run after Last Ronin with new Turtles and new things like that. Like they're still able to mix things up and make each series or film a little bit different from the other. I'm really curious for the kid in me of how they approach the new reboot of the Ninja Turtles and films and giving something different. I still adamant just want them to go back to the suits. I want them to get the Jim Henson Company back on board and do the suits for it. Even if maybe they do a hybrid of where they use some CGI on the faces to make it easier for the stunt actors and stuff to do. But there's just something that was just so cold and off-putting about those gigantic CGI version of the Turtles that there's just something warm and just feel like home having those suits. They just felt like real characters to you as kids and even adults. Even though you can see seams in the neck and other stuff like that, they just felt real, and they just haven't felt as real as they did since Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah, sometimes practical works. Sometimes practical works so much better, and this is a case where I'm in agreement. I think practicality does work so much better in representing those characters. But yeah, man, I just the feel of calm I had in that theater was just it's something I haven't had in so long in a theater experience, because it just took me back. I was just like, man, when I didn't have a care in the world, I love the Ninja Turtles, and like it was a real fun experience, man. I'm definitely glad we did this.
Yeah, just right in the childhood, like just smiling ear to ear whole time, mouthing lines out without saying them out loud to be rude to other people, but just mouthing so many lines, especially Mikey's lines and stuff, because I remember so much, especially when he gets on the phone, like, let me talk to April. Let me have the hello, like doing all that stuff. Like, there's just so many it's just pure fun moments in this. And like I said, it shouldn't have worked as well as it did because of how much they changed, but they just nailed that blend of the dark and serious with those few, moments of where they're looking at the vial and questioning their own lives with things, but then they just go so silly slapstick of putting the ice cubes of the stuff, like Mikey dropping his pizza into the mixture, and they're just like, oh, yeah, this little blender is going to blend up the hard crust of the pizza into that, or yeah, let's give Tokar and Razor a pre-fight donut.
It's not going to change the chemical compound at that at all. Like it's nothing to see here.
And is Schwarzenegger hard to spell? Wait, there's just so many memorable lines and stuff that memorable with Vanilla Ice. Even Tokar and Razor, like even though they were a bit flatter because, like you said, they were so giant, bulky suits, they couldn't really do great, big action sequences with them. They were mainly getting pummeled and taking it with that. There's just so much fun. Like I could sit here and talk about it for hours and hours just because of the love I have for this film of just being so lighthearted and fun, but keeping just enough of that darkness and with that. But like, I still would have loved to seen what would have happened if we had another Turtles film in the vein of the first one, because I do love the darkness and the adultness of that one. But this one, it's just hard to say, like, if we never got Secret of the Ooze in this way, that it would have been would have our childhood been as big. And as I said, I feel this is the tentpole that really made sure that the cartoon's going to stick around for a while. The Turtles, because I think it was 2 to 3 years after Secret of the Ooze before they did Turtles in Time.
It was 2 years,
And so they weren't, I guess, as concerned about keeping up the momentum after the second one, because maybe they felt like, hey, we did it.
Yeah.
We're good. And then they did Turtles in Time.
And then we got that. But there's so many different things. Like we could go back and do like a really bad review of that one, which I would be totally up for to do at some point, and just talk about how different that was compared to even this one. And there's so much messiness behind the scenes with that one that we could fill a whole other episode with, and stay tuned, we just might at some point. But yeah, I mean, this is such an important film for both of us, and this couldn't have come at a better time. I needed to go see this one, and I'm definitely glad we did.
And I'll say, if it's still around for you to see, go out and see it. It is a 4K transfer, so it's been cleaned up a bit. It looked fantastic. It sounded fantastic. They also have the 4K transfers out to buy on Blu-ray and everything else as well. So if you're turtle nuts like us, that's definitely a big part of
for sure
your fandom to get those 4K cuts, because they did a good job with the first one and this one. I'm curious to see if we do end up getting a 35th anniversary of Turtles in Time and them showing that 4K transfer of that one as well. I may just go back to theaters and watch it, because I guess it's like, maybe I've watched the first Turtles 1,000 times and I've watched the second Turtles 900 times. I've watched the third one 10 times, maybe. Like, there's a very big difference in the amount of times. Like, there's some fun moments out of it, but I just can't get over just how the suits looked bad. Like, just so bad. And, like, what made you go from learning the secrets of the Ooze and how they were created to a torch that takes you back in time to... I mean, I like the look of the Turtles wearing the samurai stuff. Like, that was fun. But past that, it was just so rough.
How do you feel about that being as close to we've gotten to the Last Ronin in any type?
Please bring the Last Ronin live action back in there. That's because that's kind of what they said. They want to continue on with it being more towards the lighter child, like Secret of the Ooze, and they felt like if they're rebooting it as a film series with that, then how can they do a dark, violent, death-centered Last Ronin story in live action? So I'm hoping the new reboot does well enough. I mean, we still have no details because of all of the buying and selling and everything else that's going on with the studios. Yeah. I hope it does well, and I hope it does really good for the next generation of Turtle fans to really bring that fandom to them, like the first two Ninja Turtle films did for us. Like, we really hope that can do that for a new generation of fans. But as the older fans, we still want to see that Last Ronin live action.
Make it happen. It's one of the best, not just Ninja Turtle stories. It's just such a well-told story in general that I'm very excited for the possibility of that making it to the big screen. Make it happen. Like, that's one that all fans would love. That would do so well commercially. It's not even funny because there's so many of us in that fandom that absolutely love that story. If you haven't read it, go out of your way to read it because it's such a dark, brooding, incredibly well-told story about the last remaining Ninja Turtle. And it's almost like, if you've never read it, imagine John Wick in Ninja Turtle form. That's kind of what the Last Ronin is. It's kind of like that.
Please get him, Chad, who directed the John Wick films, to do the Last Ronin when you finally get it back on.
Be incredible.
He would nail that, because the tone and the cinematography and the look and everything of how to handle John Wick would be absolutely perfect to translate over into Ninja Turtle, into the Last Ronin.
Make it happen. Just what are we doing? Stop messing around. Get it made. Get it to us.
So thank you so much for tuning in. And if you feel so inclined, do all the things to help the show out, from follows, shares, likes, and comments on social media to subscribing on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms. All of it helps us out so much, and we can't thank you enough for all the support.
You can also become a subscriber over on Patreon to get each episode delivered to you early, exclusive merch items, and your name read out at the end of every episode. Check it out at patreon.com/we'llbringthepopcorn.
That's going to do it for this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.